it's Karen Burniston, and the only thing cooler than a pop-up card would be a pop-up card that also lights up. We have teamed up with the Pearblossom Press team to collaborate on our die sets with their easy light sets for some really fun effects. Now I'll be teaching in this video how to light up our Snowman twist circle die set. I've done it in a Halloween theme with an octopus mummy, because why not? But you could definitely just take this technique and use it in any theme. And you can check out all of our dies at karenburniston.com. Now for my Halloween card, the paper is going to do a lot of the work for me. This is Simple Stories Happy Haunting Collection. Since it is squares, I went with a 6x6 card. So that's 12 by 6 scored in the middle for folding. I just went by the squares on the paper. And I decided to make it a window card, so I wanted to cut out the square in the middle. I lucked out that one of the squares from our Squares Crosshatch die set fit that nearly perfectly, just a little bit larger than the square. Now you can use any die cutting machine that can accommodate a wafer thin die, and today I am using my Spellbinders Platinum 6. So that trick or treat square I won't use, but it's cute, so I'll keep it for something else. Talk about well named. The easy light sets from Pearblossom Press really are easy. You get 5 in a set. There are instructions on the back. You slide a battery in under the battery holder with the positive side up. As soon as it's in, you can press the switch and 3 little lights light up every time you press that switch. So if you want to make a light up pop-up card, these are really your perfect solution because they are wired and you don't have to make the circuit with copper tape. Now I'm planning on having my switch in the bottom right corner and snaking the wires under the paper, but then I want them to come up behind the pop-up. So I'm going to put my big circle that I plan to use for my pop-up in place to determine a spot where I can bring the wires up into the card. And I figure right around here will work. Now I could get my craft knife out and make a pretty hole, but actually it's going to be hidden by the pop-up, so I'm just going to use my scissors and just pierce a rough hole just in the spot where I want to snake the wires up from underneath the card. So my 3 lights are going to come through that hole from behind the paper and then into the inside. And I can bring quite a bit of the slack up into the paper. I only need enough to get my switch over to the bottom right corner for behind the paper. Okay, for the back of my card, I'm going to mount it onto a 6x6 square of black cardstock. And the first thing I'm going to do is cut out that bottom right corner. That way I can lift that up on foam tape to hide the switch and battery pack. So then you can see here kind of getting everything arranged on my black square. The switch is going to mount to that black square in that lower right corner. I'll just use some strong tacky tape for that. And I can use that ghost square to kind of make sure that I place the switch in a good spot where it's right behind the belly of the ghost. Just kind of giving that a test that I've got a good spot there. And then now I can put the ghost square on permanently. I just need foam tape around the perimeter of the square, leaving the center parts open. So just peel up the liner on that foam tape. And then I'm just going to go in there and get it around the battery holder and switch, just lining up with the corner of the black cardstock. So just a quick check to make sure my lights are still lighting up, and they are. And now I can carefully turn that paper over so that the lights don't come out of the hole, and then just add a tape runner all over the back of that paper so that I can put it onto the black cardstock. And I'm being pretty generous with my tape runner. So just line it up around that ghost square and with the edges of the black cardstock. Now, if I happen to have a stamp that said push or press, I could have stamped the belly of the ghost, but I have no such thing in my collection. So instead, I just went to my Dymo label maker and just made a little label that says push. Now, it would have worked just as well to just write the word push or press on the ghost, or maybe to do it on the computer. Switching to the front of the card, I've cut a piece of black cardstock 5 5/8 inch square, and then added to that a piece of pattern paper 5 3/8 inch square. And that way it's a little bit smaller than the front of the card so that I'll get that pretty border of the original pattern paper. I'm going to use some temporary removable tape to hold that on the front of the card in the proper position so that I can open the card and actually trace the window area onto the back of the black cardstock. Now I know exactly where to cut my square window for the front of the card, and I'm going to step up to the next size up square for this so that the window on the front of the card is actually a little bit larger. Okay, perfect. Now I have that square cut into the front panels of my card, And then on the back, I want to just add some tape runner around the square opening to put in a piece of vellum. Okay, so now I have my frosted window. Then I can go ahead and add my tape runner on the back and place that on the front of the card. Okay, time to build a pop-up. I'm going to start with the largest circle from my Circles Crosshatch die set, and that's actually going to be the base card for my pop-up. So I want to fold that in half. Okay, in the Snowman Twist Circle die set, you have a base die. That's this one. It has the alignment nubs. So I want to line up those alignment nubs right over the fold of my circle. I'll use some temporary tape to hold that in place, and then I'm going to run that through my die cutting machine. Okay, carefully removing the die from the circle, I now want to train the base of my twist circle. So the first thing I do is I back fold my circle. That way I can see the diagonal folds that create the pop-up. And I want to fold through both layers on those so that I can train those diagonal folds. You can see it comes to a point in the middle. Then I return everything back to where it started again and open up the circle. And now here's what I'm looking to do. Pinch those little pop-up parts to come into the circle as you close it like a card. So if I'm closing the circle like a card, those little pop-up parts are going to pop up into the circle. And then what that circle is going to be is the base of our pop-up. So it will end up gluing inside the card directly over the fold of the card. I love using glue for pop-ups. So I've got my LINECO neutral pH adhesive in my fine tip bottle, and I've coated one side of the pop-up. I'm going to work one side and then the other. So the first side I'll get in will be to the left of the fold, just making sure that the fold of the circle is directly over the fold of the card, and then just pressing down all of the flat parts of that circle. And notice I pulled the wires out of the way, but now I want to snake them through the opening of the pop-up at the top there before I glue down the right side. Now I can close that pop-up to get access to the other side, and then just coat everywhere with adhesive and press it down on the right side of the fold. So just a quick check to make sure the base of the pop-up is working nicely, and it is. Just a little bit of the circle will show through the window. The upper part of the pop-up for the twist circle I've just cut out of black cardstock. There are 3 fold lines in that piece, right up the middle, and then the 2 tapered tabs at the bottom, and everything is a mountain fold, meaning you're folding away from yourself. So you make this little mountain like this. Attaching this to the pop-up is very simple. The adhesive is going to go on the tapered tabs, and I'll just do one first. So add the adhesive on the tapered tab. Then I need to get in there along that flat part of the base so that the fold of the upper part is right at the flat part of the base. Give it a good press. That will attach that tab to the base of the pop-up. And then I just do the same thing on the other side. So the adhesive goes underneath the tab, and then I just make sure that the fold of the tapered tab is right along that flat part of the base, and then just press it until it sets up. And then I can carefully close the card, and it'll twist that upper part of the pop-up into the flat position. So now it should be working just fine. Okay, for decorative circles from the set, I went with the largest one out of black, then the stitched circle out of orange spotted paper, and then the black beaded ring, and I will glue all those together. Now what you choose to light up on the twist circle is up to you. I've decided on a mummy octopus, so I'm using our ocean animals, and then a jack-o'-lantern from our Halloween elements. My idea for the jack-o'-lantern is that it would become like a trick-or-treat pumpkin. So to make it like that, I'm going to take my scissors and cut a very thin piece of leftover orange cardstock to make a handle, and then I added some ink around the pumpkin, cut off the top part, in a scoop, kind of like that you could put candy in, and then I'm just going to get that little handle attached. Okay, so before I add any vellum to the back of these pieces, I first want to place them on my circle to determine where the lights need to go. So I'm going to trace through the eye holes and through the nose of the jack-o'-lantern. And then in all 3 of those cases, I actually want to punch those out to become holes. Now for adding this to the pop-up, I have to do a little extra thought because it's a window card. If it wasn't a window card, I would just add my adhesive to the front part of the pop-up like this, and then just place my circle on it. But I want to think about how it's going to look when the card is closed. So I need to carefully close the card without pressing down, or else my vellum will stick to that adhesive, and instead slide in my circle. And what I'm looking to do is have the eyes in the upper right, the jack-o'-lantern in the lower left, but making sure that those holes are off of that little pop-up support. So this is what I mean. When I open it up, when I look on the back, I should be able to have access to all 3 of those holes. Okay, now comes the fiddly part, figuring out where to put the wires. So the first thing I'm going to do is attach all 3 of them to the back part of the support by just wrapping a little belly band of sticky cardstock around them. Now they're up behind the circle to where I can go ahead and start weaving them until the lights are actually over the little holes. And I'm just using washi tape on the back of the circle to hold those in place. And I really don't mind at all that the back of my pop-up is kind of messy with all that washi tape. No one's really going to be looking back behind there, but if they did, I'm okay with it. Okay, so I've added vellum to the back of my jack-o'-lantern. And then to make that a darker color, I just use a dark Copic marker on the back of the vellum to color it in. And then I've added the vellum oval to the back of the octopus and then colored on the back of the vellum with red. Okay, to make the octopus a mummy, you want either washi tape or graphic art tape or paper tape, whatever you've got that's white. I found this old paper tape in my stash and it had a little edging on the side, which I thought was cool. But really, any of those tapes that you can find that are predominantly white will work great to mummify your animal. Okay, so now my pieces are ready to go on the pop-up, and it's just a matter of attaching them so that they line up with the holes. I glued the octopus flat on the circle and then added a little pop dot on the right side of the jack-o'-lantern. Okay, this video is long enough and you have plenty of stuff to see, so I'm just going to walk through what I did to finish the decorations. I kept it simple on the front. Back to my squares crosshatch to make a purple frame to go around the opening. And then I also framed out with the beaded trim from our cake trims die set. I cut those pieces out of orange. Then in the vellum window, I added 2 bats from our Halloween scene, and then went back to my label maker to make another push for the bottom right corner. That way you can actually light up the card while it's closed. Okay, let's talk about the inside decorations. It really didn't need much. Okay, first thing I did is I added a couple bats on the vellum that matched the ones that were showing through from the front. So those came out of Halloween scene, as well as a vellum spider web and a spider next to the mummy. Around the perimeter, I went back to the cake trims, that beaded trim, this time out of black, and you can see I just kind of broke the trim everywhere where it was going to cover up something important. I just left a gap there. And then as a final little touch, I added the witch hat from the Halloween elements to the ghost. My finished card is a 6x6 square, but remember that was really dictated by the paper I chose. So you could definitely do this same technique in an A2 card or maybe an A7. You know, just have fun experimenting with the different card sizes and also experiment with what you're going to put on the twist circle to light it up. It definitely doesn't have to be an octopus mummy. It doesn't have to be a Halloween card. You could definitely do this for another season. You are going to find a lot of cool pop-up light-up inspiration from our Pearblossom Press collaboration. Head on over to the blog post if you're on YouTube. You will find the link in the description box below. Thanks for watching. If you click on the website link, you'll go to KarenBurniston.com where you can find out information about purchasing these dies as well as links to all my other social media accounts. You can subscribe to this YouTube channel and check out some of my other videos. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.